Most of us Americans use credit cards nearly every day. And while credit cards are not inherently bad, the way many of us use them is. A lot of us have a pretty good understanding of how credit cards work, but there's still somehow this disconnect where we don't regard the credit card debt to be as bad as it truly is. I personally know of several friends and family members who carry credit card debt, so it's my intent with this video to help illustrate how bad credit card debt is and how it can destroy your life if you let it grow at a faster rate than you can pay it down. Money is a boring topic for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Just taking a little bit of time to learn the basics is enough to set yourself up for success in the future. A couple basic statistics surrounding Americans and credit cards and money in general. The median yearly wage in the US is $54,000. The mean yearly wage in the US is $59,000. 74% of Americans feel stressed with their personal finances. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 80% of Americans have at least one credit card, and 60% of Americans carry a credit card balance, with the average carried balance being $6,000. The average interest rate on a credit card is 25%. How credit cards work. When you apply for a credit card, based on your credit, you will either be approved or denied. If you're approved, you'll be sent a card and you'll be issued an available amount of credit that you can borrow at a particular interest rate. Once you receive your card, you can input the card information into your phone and your watch to make spending money incredibly convenient. But the sneaky ways in which money is liberated from our pockets is a topic for another video. Let's assume you've just received your card and you activate it and start using it. In about 4 weeks, at the end of the statement period, whatever balance is remaining on your card is going to be your statement balance. This is the amount of money that you have to pay off by your next due date to avoid generating any interest. If you make less payments than that amount, then you're going to be charged interest based on the remaining statement balance. To be clear, your credit card does not have to be at a $0 balance on your due date. You just have to have fully paid off the previous statement's balance to avoid interest. The reality is, most Americans continue to use their credit card even as they're trying to pay it off. So when you make a payment, the balance tends to creep right back up with gas, groceries, and daily spending. For many of us, we're paid hourly, so it's easy to define money in terms of the time it takes to earn. Someone who's making $55,000 per year is making about $26 per hour. So if that same person carries a credit card balance of $6,000, that means that they owe approximately 230 hours of work, or 29 work days. When that $6,000 generates $125 of interest in 1 month, that means that you've just lost almost 5 more hours on top of the 29 work days that you already owe. Compound interest is the most powerful force on earth, whether it's working for you or against you. To me, one of the single most powerful motivators not to carry credit card debt is that compounding loss of time. At a certain point, you'll be unable to stay afloat with how much time you already owe, and at your current pay rate, you can't swim back upstream against all of the interest that's rushing at you. Credit card debt is like being buried alive. When you make a payment, you remove some of the dirt on top of you. But when you spend money or generate interest, more dirt gets piled back on. The more dirt on top of you, the more suffocating it becomes. If you have credit card debt, this needs to be the first thing you address before investing or even saving up an emergency fund. You need to think of credit card debt as a blight that needs to be exterminated. Credit card debt is an infestation of moist maggots and cockroaches and locusts, and you need to destroy it with fire. Don't ever get caught up in just making minimum payments. Making minimum payments is a trap from the credit card company to get you to carry a balance, so that over the lifetime of your credit card debt, you are giving them as much money as possible in the form of interest. If you can't get out of credit card debt, you're never going to escape living paycheck to paycheck. Set your future self up for success by making sure they have money rather than owe it. The optimal order of money. There's generally an ideal order for the way that we should be spending our money. One issue I see, and not necessarily with just my generation, but with the general population, is the careless spending of money. Too many people get paid, buy what they want, and then pay bills and save or invest out of what's left over. Once you're out of debt, you should adopt the habit of paying yourself first. When you get paid, set aside the amount of money that you need for necessities and set aside the amount of money that you're going to save or invest, and then pay bills and spend out of what's left over. I'll make another video in the future talking more about this ideal order of how we should be spending our money, and I'll also talk more details about 401ks, IRAs, HSAs, and ways that you could potentially be making more money on the cash that you're holding. Giving yourself a raise. Another way to think about credit card debt is if you pay off a credit card that had a 25% interest rate, you have effectively just given yourself a 25% raise. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know a single person who wouldn't be thrilled to walk into work one morning to be greeted by their boss with a 25% raise. The true cost of credit card debt. We've talked about the cost of borrowing money on a credit card and not paying it back in time, but this debt is even more expensive when you consider the cost of opportunity of what that money could be doing if it was working for you rather than against you. If you're paying $500 on your credit card every month, that same $500 could instead be going into a savings or investment account that grows for you. Thinking in percentages. It's important to think about percentages when thinking about the long term. If you were to make 25% yearly gains, you would be an investing genius and you would be wealthy in no time. For as amazing as that would be, it's also amazing how cavalier we are when it comes to losing 25% yearly. If you buy a low-cost index fund that buys the entire market, over a long term, you can expect to make about 8 to 10% per year. If you're investing and hoping to make about 8 to 10% per year, but carrying a credit card balance that costs you 25% per year, that headwind is never going to allow you to make forward progress. Discipline. Accruing credit card debt can happen very quickly, but paying it off is usually a much slower process. A lot of people who start down the path of paying off their credit card get discouraged by how slow their progress seems to be. When you're paying off debt, you're swimming upstream. The higher the interest rate on that debt, the faster the water is flowing at you. The larger the balance and the lower your income, the longer you're going to have to swim and the less efficient your strokes. Of course, it's going to be slow, but the important thing is that you continue to make progress. Look at your last 3 months of statements. Take an honest look at your spending and tally up where your money is going. It's easy for us to know it's bad and to know that we shouldn't be spending money the way that we are, but just to get swept up in it and continue doing it. When I was in debt, I was in denial. I hated logging onto my bank account. I hated looking at how much available credit I had left. I hated going to the grocery store and being worried and having to be deliberate not to buy too much to go over my credit limit. I just kept imagining at some point in the future I would be making significantly more money and I could bail myself out. Take accountability and make more deliberate decisions on how you're spending your money. It takes discipline over the long term to learn to live on less, but once you know where your money is going, then you can start to reduce your unnecessary expenses. You're going to have to say no a lot more often, and you're going to have to make sacrifices. But when you say no more often, that gives you more time and resources to focus on the things that actually matter to you. Before you buy something, ask yourself if you really need it. Is this item going to improve the quality of my life commensurate to its cost, including the cost of opportunity of what that money could be doing if invested for me? Or is it something that's just going to provide a temporary satisfaction in the same way that a sugary dessert does? The reduction of stress. When I had credit card debt, I was stressed all of the time. I was stressed logging onto my bank account. I was stressed looking at my credit card. The thought of looking at my credit card statement was horrifying. I knew it was bad, but I was in denial, and I felt just so worried all of the time. And looking back, this was incredibly dangerous because I was one severe accident away from absolute financial catastrophe. with 2 credit cards that were maxed out, a line of credit that was maxed out, and a personal loan, I was worried that at the age of 30, I would have to move back home to my mom's house. The difference in stress between then and now is absolutely staggering. If you can take the steps now to reduce the stress that you are feeling from your personal finances, not only are you going to set yourself up for a better, more successful financial future, but you're also going to end up reducing the cost of your medical expenses over the course of your life. Stress is a killer. Using a credit card correctly. Pay off the balance in full each month. Don't have more than a few credit cards. If you don't have enough cash to afford something, you shouldn't be buying it with a credit card. Don't buy something you don't need or didn't plan for simply because you might get 2 or 5% back in rewards. Yes, if you buy something and get 5% back, you save 5%, but you have still spent 95%. If you have credit card debt, please make it a priority to pay it off as aggressively as you can. If you can make more money, reduce your expenses, or ideally both, you'll have more money available each month to throw at your debt. The sooner the debt is gone, the sooner you can start building wealth. In a future video, I will talk more about my own journey of how I ended up accumulating about $25,000 of high interest debt, and how over the course of a year and a half, making about the average wage in the US, I was able to pay off that debt and then start investing within a Roth IRA, 401k, and HSA. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate that. Please like and subscribe if you got anything of value out of this, and if you would like to see videos similar to this in the future.